we're here today with Kevin Neal, who is CEO of P3ID, which you can see in his background there. For purposes of today, we're talking with Kevin about TWAIN and TWAIN Direct and what TWAIN can do to advance the capture industry and make capture easier for end users as well as vendors. Let me look at my notes here. Kevin is a marketing chair as well as a board member for TWAIN. And by way of introduction, I'm Bryant Duhon. I'm editor of the Document Imaging Report published by InfoSource. So let's get started, Kevin. So for folks not familiar with TWAIN, just give us the elevator pitch for what it is.
Great, Brian. It's an honor to be with you today because we've got a lot of exciting updates for the TWAIN Working Group and around our TWAIN Direct project. So let's start with the basics, as you said. So there in the document imaging and the capture space, you have scanning devices like copy machines and document scanners. And then you have the software applications. And the reality is that the software applications don't talk directly to devices. There's a scanner driver in between, and usually it's an ISIS driver from OpenText or a TWAIN driver. And the difference is that OpenText is a commercial available driver that the scanner manufacturers have developed for them. And that allows the software application to talk to the device. Or there's an open source version, which is a specification provided by the TWAIN Working Group. And then developers like scanner manufacturers or software application providers can create an integration into those devices and have their software applications talk to the devices. So just like you install a printer driver for printing devices, the TWAIN Working Group provides a specification to develop a TWAIN driver that's installed on a computer that is that interface between the device and the software application.
Okay. So extending on that, and you were about to get into that, I can see you're holding yourself back because you know what this next question is. So what is the value of TWAIN and TWAIN Direct for vendors to include in their scanners and scanner and as well as software availability?
You're right. You can tell, I always have to temper my excitement to talk about TWAIN Direct, but there's a history with TWAIN Classic. So there's basically two versions of the TWAIN driver, the TWAIN Classic version, which I just described, which is software application to device, but it's a compiled application that's usually installed on a Windows PC or a Linux system or a Macintosh system. So it's an installed application. So, and that's worked for 20, 25 years. The TWAIN Working Group and all the contributors to the project have made TWAIN a very solid standard, and a lot of people love it. So TWAIN Classic, tried and true, but you install it, typically was designed for behind the firewall. But now with cloud services and web services and API, we are creating a new version of the TWAIN driver and a specification, but it's an API instead of a specification. So because it's an API and applications programmer interface, and it's a RESTful API, people can host the API as a cloud. So instead of creating a software application to the device, you can create a software application that integrates into a cloud server that then manages all of your different TWAIN Direct compatible devices. So it's drastically different to enable rapid deployment, a rapid integration, to integrate with third-party applications and web services, to integrate mobile devices and develop applications quicker. So TWAIN Direct is about a 3-year-old project now. And we're very excited to have new kind of partners and end user organizations come in, ask questions about the TWAIN Direct project, download the code, actually start developing an application with it, with TWAIN Direct. So it's a very exciting time, and we've got a lot of activities that I'll share with you in these next couple minutes here, Bryant. So very exciting time for TWAIN Working Group and TWAIN Direct.
Now, the follow-on question for value for vendors is, what is the value for TWAIN for end users? And I'm assuming from that question, we're getting into sort of that network scanning and the ability to use the cloud effectively for capture.
That's exactly right. So these megatrends, cloud capture and network attached devices, that is exactly where the TWAIN Direct project is focused. Is because all of the scanners that are being developed now have network interfaces. They either have a RJ45 connector, they have Wi-Fi, they even are coming with 5G and 6G eventually. So every single one of them, even though they might still have a USB interface, they're coming with network attached. So if this is a fact, then there's an opportunity to integrate with those devices using something like TWAIN Direct. So specifically for an end user, and we hear it all the time, and I heard it when I was, at manufacturers, is that the end user benefits because they can go get a TWAIN compliant device from any manufacturer that has TWAIN Direct compatible hardware or any model. So if the model's discontinued, then they can go get a different TWAIN Direct compatible scanner or device. It allows them to reduce vendor lock-in. So it allows the organization the freedom to have a mixed environment, to use different models, to not have to upgrade their devices all the time. So really the freedom of choice for vendors, for model numbers, to have a mixed environment, to have the centralized control, like we just mentioned. If you have one cloud server, the TWAIN cloud, and you can manage all of your devices from one centralized location, then that reduces a lot of IT burden because you don't have to remote desktop to each computer to change the DPI on this set, this PC. You change it once and you push it out to the whole fleet of devices. So end user organizations can really benefit from TWAIN Direct.
Yeah, I think that's that ease of use, even on not even on the end user side, but on the IT side, especially as IT the skills shortage is growing. Whatever companies can do to make that IT resource more effective and efficient, regardless of the technology, just makes tremendous sense.
I mean, you set it and forget it almost, right? Because you could plug these in because the server has all the settings. The scanners don't maintain the settings anymore. Most of them don't have hard drives. They just have like enough memory to produce an image and send it in. So they're basically cameras, and all the workflow and the settings are on the server. So you set it once and you centralize all your settings and you push out profiles from the server to the scanner. So like you said, the IT benefits are like tremendous.
Okay. So what's the latest from TWAIN?
Okay, so as I mentioned, we've done a lot of activities. So we're not doing things in a vacuum, and by that I mean we conducted at the end of last year, 2021, and the beginning of this year, we conducted several focus groups. And what we did was we invited a bunch of different industry experts from all kinds of, where there was hardware manufacturers, from the document scanner industry, multifunction copy machine manufacturers, there was capture ISVs, big cloud vendors, RPA people, AI people. So we invited a big collection of people to participate in the focus groups. And then we did surveys, we had good talks. So as a result of the focus groups, we are doing things like at the end of this year, we're tentatively going to have a developers day in November on 8th and 9th in Tampa, where we actually are going to have people come in. It'll be a hybrid event. So there'll be people on site. There'll also be people via Zoom like this. And our plan is to get like 20 to 30 developers that actually get hands-on with TWAIN Direct. So that's one of the activities that's really exciting. We're also a proud sponsor, once again, of the InfoSource Capture 2022 event at the beginning of September in Chicago. We've been a sponsor. We've been a sponsor for the past couple of years. It's always a great, intimate place to really talk about what's new and exciting in the capture industry. And this year, the TWAIN Working Group is going to be sharing some of our results from the focus groups. We're going to be talking about our Developers Day that will be a month or two after the event for Capture 22. And then, of course, we continue to innovate on the technology side. And I'll share a little bit more about that.
Let's pick up on that innovation. I mean, you've been working on TWAIN Direct. That was 3 years ago, I think. TWAIN Direct, the work began on that. I believe you said. So innovation. So what's next? What's the next thing after TWAIN Direct?
So we are a technology group at the end of the day. That's what we are. So we develop open source technology standards, and we advocate for standards. So right now, TWAIN Direct is a scanner protocol. So that's what the API is. So that's number one. So you could drive the scanning devices. And number two, we also have a file format, a PDF-R raster. So you can actually create a PDF file from the device itself. So those are two things. You could get scanner connectivity and a file format. The next thing that we're probably won't put in the specification, but will be an amendment, is enterprise authentication. So if you have a cloud application, you can't log into the cloud without some kind of identity. And so the ability to integrate with Active Directory or LDAP services or single sign-on through a protocol called SAML, S-A-M-L 2.0. So it's an industry standard. So since we're an industry standards committee, we're going to advocate for SAML 2.0 support, and we'll provide some details on how to integrate SAML 2.0 into your TWAIN Direct application. So that was a major step in that, based on all the feedback that we've got from the focus groups and the membership, is that this isn't for consumer usage. This is going to be for small businesses or enterprise businesses mostly, because the scanning devices themselves are still $500, $1,000 for even the low end ones. So people aren't this isn't like a consumer application. So it needs enterprise authentication. So that's one thing we've been talking about. We've also been talking about things like basically hosting TWAIN Cloud API, so that people, instead of getting the source code and downloading it and setting up themselves, they might be able to have a hosted environment where they just come in and they can start developing an application on day one, and this takes away all the friction of getting started. So that's a significant development we might do. These are still kind of future things. And then also improving the way that we deliver the code on GitHub. So there's a bunch of source code on GitHub, but you still have to do a lot of work to compile it. So we want to have more built out sample applications that are fully functional that you could just get and then modify, put your logo, change your colors, add your uniqueness to it. So
all the traditional value of using the cloud. It's actually it's funny to listen to a hardcore. Obviously you've been a hardware guy. You run a business. Listen to a scanner manufacturer talk about using the cloud like an app to do driver delivery. It's kind of 20 years ago, I think we'd have both been like, nah.
Yeah, it's kind of the way it should be. I mean, a software application developer, they want to create their application and the workflow logic. That's the real important thing. Getting an image into the system is very super important, but it's like a trivial thing that they should not have to worry about. They shouldn't have to become a scanner expert and a driver expert. So if you're a workflow provider, if you're an RPA company, if you're a big cloud company, if you're developing a business application, right? You just want this TWAIN Direct plugin to be able to get images into my system efficiently, securely, and then I could do something with it. And that's what we learned from the focus groups was that, hey, just give me something that works. I can plug in. I want to do it. I want to have to rebuild the wheel again. It's kind of senseless.
It's like, give me 3/4 of the wheel and I'll build the other quarter. As a horrible analogy. I find it fascinating that you snuck in security again, and we don't need to go on this, but it's obviously, and you're a big proponent of ensuring that capture, especially network capture, is secure. And I'll give you 30 seconds to talk about the importance of that, and I'm going to time you.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So I'll say a couple quick words. You're right. Cybersecurity is a big deal. I just read articles every day about this. So the authentication I just mentioned this is about identity, knowing who it is, so I know where to put your stuff. But there's also the idea of security around it. So enterprise authentication, number one. Then we're also talking about blockchaining scanned documents, and then encrypting scanned documents, and then tokenizing scanned documents. So there's all these things that you could do around as a TWAIN Direct developer. There's all kinds of special things because you have access to that device at the very end of the very beginning and the very end of the transaction. So if software developers look at this as an opportunity to, my gosh, if I can get the access directly to the device and I control the workflow, then I could do these amazing things to secure the endpoint and the data itself. It's an amazing opportunity, Bryant.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Segueing into the next question, which is a general broad industry question. So the capture industry continues to be a green market. How does a piece of technology like TWAIN help expand the market?
And that's a good question too. So a lot of people will say, "Hey, scanner driver, that's boring, right? It's kind of I can't. It's not strategic to my business." But I think just actually the opposite. If you take a technology like TWAIN Direct, plus some other technologies and solutions, but if you take it at its core and you think about it, TWAIN Direct can be the centralized kind of workflow central that you can build upon that can be so strategic to a business that you can't believe it. Because as a former IT guy, first of all, I want something that I can plug in. It like basically as like a SNMP kind of control system. It controls my routers, my servers, my switches. I can see the status of all. Can you imagine a workflow system that can integrate with all your imaging devices, and that includes document scanners, copy machines, video cameras, Alexas, where you're collecting data from all kinds of sources. So if you can imagine that, and I can build an application around that and put workflow on top of that, then it becomes a strategy and not an expense or cumbersome. I hear it all the time, Bryant, like, okay, the big cloud guys want to sell, 5,000 seats of Azure, but they got a beautiful Azure application and it does all these fancy things for the business, but they say, okay, I got to get an image into it. So how do they solve that problem today? They scan to a desktop, then they browse and upload to a folder. So the chain of custody is totally lost in that case, right? That's not an acceptable answer anymore. You have to have directly from the scanning application into your Azure application with 5,000 seats. So if TWAIN Direct is part of your strategy, and the Azure application developer says, hey, I could just put TWAIN Direct as a front end, collect the images into my Azure application. It allows me to sell the 5,000 Azure seats much more effectively because I have a better solution that's secure because it's the endpoint from the scanner directly into my application. It's easy because it doesn't have the driver conflicts. You hear about USB conflicts all the time, and my scanner got disconnected. If it's it just requires a network connection only, there isn't that install driver, it's just a network connection that's more stable, it's more reliable, it's effective to manage because it's a one workflow kind of thing. So you can imagine, long story short, Bryant, is that if you make this part of a strategic initiative, then this can like revolutionize your company in the digital transformation, future of work kind of business. So that's why I think it's strategically important, not just it's a cool little tool kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like you were saying, it's kind of it's like a hidden missing piece that just makes that ability to digitally transform an organization. I hate that word, but let's use it. Just makes it a little bit easier, a little bit simpler, a little bit safer, a little bit better.
If you tallied the amount of time spent on getting scanners working in the industry on a daily basis, I would say there's billions of dollars wasted on tech support calls, and my scanner doesn't work, and I got to upgrade the driver to Windows 11 version. All those kind of things are eliminated with a RESTful API TWAIN Direct kind of solution. So yeah. So there's financial benefits all over the place, strategic benefits moving forward, connectivity, interoperability, security. So it's the wave of the future. Brian, as the device manufacturers, they're creating the network interfaces on all their devices. So if they see it and they're spending billions and billions of dollars on developing this new generation of document scanning devices, it's clear that there's going to have to be software platforms that support those devices. So it's a very amazing time.
Okay. Let me sneak in a question here before I wrap up with the last one that I shared with you before we got on this call. How does someone get involved with TWAIN?
So it's very easy. We our main website is twain.org, TWAIN.org. So that's the main TWAIN project. There's a forum on there. There's a newsletter. I highly encourage people go get the newsletter, sign up. It's distributed once a quarter. Really good information. Also, Yeah. And then also there's twaindirect.org. That's specifically about the TWAIN Direct project. I definitely encourage people to go there. You can get links to the GitHub. You can download all the materials. Then there's also membership. So you can join as a member for the TWAIN Working Group, and you can have access to early code. You can contribute to the code. You can influence the code if there's something that you think should be, as part of the open standard that we advocate for. So you can actually influence the project. So we're a very diverse group. We encourage membership. Then I also highly encourage, we're going to do more of these kind of focus groups in the future. Join those. Those were by invite only, but we'll have more of them in the future. And then last but not least, again, Bryant, if people are interested in Developers Day, we have a flyer on it. You can sponsor Developers Day as a hardware manufacturer or an ISV. It's a great opportunity for you to get in front of a bunch of developers that are creating these new kind of innovative applications. So Developers Day, November 8th and 9th. We've got information on twaindirect.org to get there. Erin Dempsey is the main contact. I don't have her phone number handy, but you can look her up and find her.
I'm pretty sure Erin will be putting all of these URLs in front of our faces as she edits this.
Yeah.
So let me conclude with a little bit of a personal question. I mean, obviously, I think we've known each other for a while. I don't think I've ever actually asked you this. Back when we were both a little bit darker in the hair department. You've been involved with TWAIN for quite a while. You've been in the industry for quite a while. Why do you? And you're always very passionate and excited about this stuff. What is it about this stuff that you love so much?
So that's a great question, Brian. Yeah, we've known each other for a long time. Yes. So first of all, I personally like sharing information. I'm part of the AIM group also too. So I like sharing information and floating ideas. So that's just my personal interest. So I like AIM and I like participating in projects. So back in the day, I got hands-on with open source software like Apache, MySQL, PHP, and downloading those tools and working with those tools allowed me to learn a lot about servers and hosting and programming languages and databases and all this stuff. So those open source tools really were interesting. So I was looking for the same kind of open source in our industry in document management, document imaging, and TWAIN was around. So I messed around with TWAIN. I saw that, a lot of people were asking for TWAIN compatible scanners and TWAIN compatible applications. So but TWAIN Direct wasn't a thing back in the day. So when TWAIN Direct came around, that's where I said, hey, I want to be part of this more sincerely and more concrete and help drive the project. So this kind of, I wasn't at the beginning of TWAIN Direct, but I do think it's the future. I've been involved at hardware and software companies, so I do hear that people really want this stuff and it needs to evolve. So if I could do whatever I can to advocate for it and share ideas and get this project moving, faster, then I'm all for it. So to answer your question, it's a personal interest that helped me learn. So I want to give back, but it's also a very valuable tool. I mean, I'm an IT guy too, so I could see the benefits of IT, like I described, and it's good for businesses. So it's not just me, saying these things. I've actually lived that life. So I want other people to be able to benefit and contribute back too. So that's what I'm all about.
I'm always fascinated when I speak to folks like yourself, because I just write about it. You've experienced the pain that you're talking about. So it's good to have that firsthand perspective. Kevin, as always, great to talk to you. Thank you for the time. Thank you for your insights, and look forward to seeing you at September 7th in Chicago at the Capture Conference in
Chicago.
Chicago, thank you.
Same place as last year, yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. Always good to talk to you.